Today, we're looking up. No, really, look up. Because what we have above us is one of the most famous ceilings on Earth. A ceiling so iconic, it has basically become shorthand for genius. A ceiling so legendary, people talk about it like it appeared fully formed, somewhere between a miracle, a myth, and one very dramatic neck cramp. Today we're looking at the Sistine ceiling, the vision, the scale, the audacity, and why even now, 500 years later, people still walk in, look up, and go a little bit quiet. This is Art Happens, the divine mess of art history, presented by J Squared Atelier. I'm James William Moore, your chaotic docent through art history, and this is Behind the Brush, Michelangelo versus the Ceiling, Part 1, The Artistry. Now, history has a funny way of smoothing things over. It takes events that were messy, unlikely, and full of risk, and turns them into clean little legends. But this story was never neat. Because before the ceiling became a masterpiece, before the tourists craned their necks and gasped, before Michelangelo became fused to this image in the public imagination, there was a much more inconvenient truth. The man at the center of this story did not walk into it as the ceiling guy. He walked into it as a sculptor. One of my favorite tensions in this whole story is that Michelangelo is now remembered as one of the giants of painting. And he did not begin from the position of, I am above all else a painter. He loved sculpture. He thought in mass, in tension, in weight, in form. So when he takes on this ceiling, he brings a sculptor's mind with him, and you can feel it. These are not feathery, decorative figures. They are bodies with force. Shoulders that carry meaning, arms that strain, torsos that twist like compressed energy, prophets who do not simply sit there looking holy. They feel monumental. They feel carved somehow, even though they are painted on plaster. That's Michelangelo doing something kind of marvelous. He drags sculpture into painting. He does not become someone else to suit the commission. He makes the commission go through him. And I love that, because it means the ceiling is not just a triumph of technique, it's a triumph of artistic identity under pressure. Sometimes the most original work does not come from being perfectly suited to the assignment. Sometimes it comes from bringing your strongest instincts into the wrong room and changing the room. Now let's talk fresco. Because fresco sounds elegant when we say it in an art history lecture. In practice, it is a stress disorder with pigments. Fresco means painting onto wet plaster, so the image bonds with the wall as it dries. And yes, that gives it durability, luminosity, a kind of built-in physical presence. But from the artist's point of view, it's not forgiving. It demands planning. It demands speed. It demands precision. You cannot wander into fresco with a coffee and a vague feeling. You have to know what you are doing. Daily sections of plaster get laid down, and those sections have to be painted before they dry, so the work happens in timed units. That alone is enough to make most creative people spiral, because it means every day has stakes. Every day has limits. Every day says, here is your wet plaster, please succeed immediately. And on a project this size, that pressure multiplies. Because each section has to work on its own and also function inside the total design. So while later generations look up and say, ah yes, genius! Michelangelo is up there doing something much less romantic. He's strategizing, planning, dividing, correcting, adapting, trying not to let the whole thing collapse into chaos. The miracle is not that it was emotional. The miracle is that it was disciplined without feeling dead. Now, of course, we have to talk about the creation of Adam, because it's one of those rare images that has escaped art history and entered collective culture. You've seen it quoted, parodied, referenced, printed, memed into oblivion, and somehow it still works. Why? Because the image is simple, but the tension is enormous. God surges forward with energy, motion, purpose. Adam reclines with that strange, almost awake softness. And between their hands, that tiny electric gap. That gap is everything. It is life not yet completed, contact not yet made, potential suspended between lines. It's one of the greatest reminders in art history that drama does not always require explosion. Sometimes drama lives in restraint, and almost, and nearly, in the held breath before the thing happens. And that is why the image survives overuse. Because it isn't just famous, it is psychologically exact. Human life lives in that gap all the time, between wanting and receiving, between intention and action, between becoming and being. Michelangelo understands that, and he gave it form. Another thing that gets flattened in the scale of the intellectual problem, people hear Sistine ceiling and think one or two famous moments. Usually the creation of Adam, maybe the almost touching hands, maybe some muscular bodies and a generalized sense of Renaissance greatness. But the ceiling is not one image. It's a whole system, a visual world. Scenes from Genesis run through the center. Prophets and sibyls surround them. Supporting figures, framing devices, illusionistic structures. Everything is organized. Everything is choreographed. This is not just a painter filling space. This is a mind building a cosmos, and it has to read from below. That's huge. Michelangelo is not designing for close-up viewing. He's designing for distance, for curvature, for shifting light, for human movement through the architecture. He has to think like a painter, an architect, a dramatist, and honestly, a stage director. What anchors the eye? What reads from the floor? What holds the narrative together? What creates impact? That's why the ceiling doesn't just look like decoration. It feels staged. It feels like revelation has entered the room. And that theatricality is one of the best reasons it still hits. Because Michelangelo understands something. Monumental art cannot just sit there. It has to perform. Just as the Sistine Chapel wasn't finished in a day, this story can't be covered in just one episode. Come back for the next episode, where we'll get into all the other forces conspiring against Michelangelo and threatening the success of this now legendary ceiling. The politics, the pressure, the physical toll, the impossible expectations. And honestly, you may come away with even more appreciation for his genius, and maybe even take a little inspiration for yourself the next time your own creative life feels impossible, exhausting, or just plain cursed. This has been Art Happens, the divine mess of art history, presented by J Squared Atelier. I'm James William Moore, your chaotic docent through art history. And until next time, keep looking closer, because next time, our hero has a brush in his hand, wet plaster over his head, and Pope Julius breathing fire from below. Will genius triumph? Will the ceiling survive? Will anyone in Rome calm down? Stay tuned, art lovers. Same art time, same art channel.